Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to episode number 7. Today we have some special episodes today on the Becoming a Gentleman podcast. Today's podcast is going to be titled Finding Forever Love with Dave Gold and Juli Reeves. And in this podcast, we dive into anything surrounding the archetype of the gentleman, anything from dating and relationships to masculinity and spirituality. I am your host, Christopher Linkenbach, and before we dive into today's episode, I would like to read to you a quotation by one of my absolute favorite books, The Way of the Peaceful Warrior by Dan Millman. In this book, one of the quotes he says is, "There's no need to search. Achievement leads to nowhere. It makes no difference at all. So just be happy now. Love is the only reality of the world, because it is all one, you see. And the only laws are paradox, humor, and change. There is no problem, never was, and never will be. Release your struggle. Let go of your mind. Throw away your concerns and relax into the world. No need to resist life, just do your best. Open your eyes and see that you are far more than you imagine. You are the world, you are the universe, you are yourself and everyone else too. It's all marvelous play of God. Wake up, regain your humor, don't worry, just be happy. You are already free." And so with that, I would like to introduce our beautiful guest here today. Dave and I actually connected and really early on, and one of the things that I absolutely fell in love with instantly was just his sense of humor and lightness of heart. And Dave has actually a very interesting story. Dave Gold actually brings the full power, wisdom, and magic of his 45 years as a businessman, executive consultant, and spiritual mentor to liberate world-changing empaths, executives, and entrepreneurs from the shackles of self-doubt and self-disqualification. He is a lawyer turned spiritual warrior and mentor to many. And Dave and Juli found each other and have helped each other grow and deepen their understanding of each other. And today we have the pleasure of speaking not only with Dave, but also with his wife, Juli Reeves. And so I'm very excited to introduce these two, and I'll let them take the floor and sort of give themselves an introduction and maybe even, brief introduction of each other. And then how did you two meet as well? So thank you.
Well, Christopher, can I start by saying the reading that you did by Dan Millman sounds exactly like the way we live our lives. So you chose perfectly.
It makes me happy.
The beautiful thing about anytime you're authentic, but especially in an truly authentic relationship, is that you're able to embody to what might just sound like ideas when you read them out of a book. So that's nice. Yeah, I'd sure like to do that. Wouldn't that be cool? And maybe when I get enlightened, or maybe when I make this, maybe next lifetime or something. When actually, whenever we're being ourselves, whatever that looks like, then we are embodying and manifesting those ideals and making them real. So, a second kudo to you. And also, I didn't realize the first time we talked, you got great pipes, man. It's true. You've got a good calling. You got a great radio voice.
Thank you. I'm in the right line of work, I guess.
Unlike the two of us. So, gosh, where to start? So I want to.
How did we meet? Was the question.
Yeah, I'm gonna go back a step because I'm incorrigible and I can't be tamed. Sure,
He can't answer a question with straight.
I could. But I will get. But before I do that, just when we were talking before we got the first time we chatted, which we hit off right away, and I want to thank you for just. I know when I wrote it was like me, but then when I talked about Juli, you were just willing to take the leap of faith and go with this. So I thank you for the flexibility and the intuition and the spontaneity to do that. But we were talking about your audience mainly being younger men who are, what does it mean to find to find a relationship, but maybe more fundamentally, to be the kind of man who will attract that relationship and not push it away, and to be a true partner and all that stuff. And I just want to start before I get into the story of saying that at the age that I think probably many of your listeners are, I had so many ideas. And I just thought, this is who I need to be to have the love that I dream of, to have the love that just, haunted me almost, because it was so real and so inviting to me. And I just thought I needed to be handsomer. I needed to be rich. I needed to be successful. I needed to be renowned. I needed to not have so many of the characteristics that I had. And I spent so many decades of my life trying to become that person, even as I was living a life of kind of radical authenticity, at least what I thought was spirituality and in businesses that had integrity. And that getting back, maybe this leads into how we met, is that when Juli dropped as a monastery of a Trappist abbot said, when Juli fell out of the universe for me, she didn't love me for any of those things. She had to love me in spite of the man that I was trying to pretend to be, despite the inauthenticity of trying to be who I thought I needed to be lovable. And it occurred to me, and this is what I want to make sure I get this point in wherever we go, people know, whatever you're doing to make yourself lovable is probably pushing love away. And will probably push love away if you insist on hanging on to it when the love beyond your dreams falls out of the universe for you, as Juli fell out for me.
And I will say that, just to put a little bit of a finer point on that, the love that David and I have, all of those, everything that he's talking about, who he was trying to become, it wouldn't have pushed me away. I just saw right through it. Like it didn't mean anything to me. Oh, okay, that's nice. Yes, okay, yes, you've been very successful. That's good for you. That's nice. You've toughened yourself up as a man. Okay, yeah, but I know who you are. All the things that he'd done, I just saw through it. So, but I think also the point David's making is that he could have pushed that love away, and he could have pushed me away. He didn't happen to do that. But I also could see through all of that. And I mean, through the eyes of love. The eyes of love can see through all of that artificial and inauthentic stuff.
And it's interesting too, even Chris, when you said, what, Christopher, you said, I couldn't find anything about you on the web. When Juli and I met, she refused to give me what she called resume points. She wouldn't tell me anything. I found out all these things later that I thought, I could brag this up to my friends and my family. But she refused to give me that. She wasn't going to let me fall in love with her resume. And this was so for her, this was more natural. It came more natural to her to be herself and to love as herself and to love someone as themselves. For me, I needed a little seasoning. I needed a few bumps on the head or whatever to be able to let go of those ideas. And I think that's, as we kind of tell the story, how it unfolds here. And we really thank you for the platform. But as we tell the story, I really want your listeners to just keep in mind that you probably are going to say, oh no, this is different for me though. Dave and Juli don't understand it. I have this thing I got to get rid of, or I have this, I'm a special case. I just can't be myself and be loved. And every one of us, and the fact that every one of us has it means that it's total nonsense.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for just so many nuggets of wisdom within there. I think, Dave, one of the things that you said that really hit me was the things that you think you are doing in order to validate or to, gain love are probably pushing it away, right? And it's that whole ambition. And why I love the quote from earlier, that very beginning, there's no need to search, achievement leads to nowhere, right? And so I think especially we as men, and I'm also seeing it with women too, is that we somehow feel that we need to do something in order to receive love, when in reality what we are at the core of who we are already is love, right? And so with that paradox, we are literally creating a hole. We are pushing that away. And I think men especially carry this burden today of just this need to prove ourselves in some way, right? Which just isn't the case.
And if I can, just one point is it that we were just sitting the other day, I can't remember what it was, but we were doing something together, and I realized all we had been through in the last 7.5 years, living this fairy tale love in a very real world with all the things that go with it. And I use fairy tale love in quotes because that's what some people might think. And I realized
It is a fairy tale love.
Thank you.
It
really is.
in the real world.
I get hyperbolic sometimes, and she needs to kind of bring me back to earth. But yes, but we realized we had been through so much. We had proven ourselves to each other. We just done it by living our life. I'm not saying, hey, I'm going to prove that to me, and then you're going to love me, and then you're going to trust me, and all this other stuff. No, we just were ourselves, and over the course of time, to me, it's unshakable conviction in the fact that we have each other's backs, that this love isn't going anywhere, that it's dependable, that she is who she, Denny Green said, they are who we thought they were, she is who I know she is, and I am free to be who I am, be more and more allowing myself to be largely through the catalytic power of her loving me as I am.
And that's
So maybe
so
we can talk
healing.
a little bit how we met. It's kind of a cool story. You asked
Yeah,
me.
let's do it. Let's do it.
So David and I both had previous marriages. We both had children with our previous spouses. And we both one day decided that we were no longer, independent of each other. We both decided or concluded or vowed that we were no longer willing to live without love. And so that led to, us leaving those marriages. David had been 4 years or so out of his. I was just getting started leaving mine. When he and I, and, bless him, he agreed to go through with the move as planned, even though we knew we were no longer going to be married when we arrived at our new location. So David and I, our daughters are the same age, and I was sending my kids to the same school that his daughter went to, and he had volunteered to be the welcoming parent for that class. So he had 4 new families that were on his spreadsheet. He loves to say, that I was the first person I was at the top of his list, and that there was no reason for him to go any further down the list than that, because
I found him.
he found me.
I didn't know my wife was on that list, but it turned out it was the first one.
But no, we didn't know at that time. We had no clue at all that there was anything more than just he was a fellow parent welcoming a new family into the class. The first time we spoke, though, and I'll let you take over.
Yeah.
Because he loves to tell this part of the story. But the first time that we spoke on the phone at distance, I'm not a person who pours myself out to just anybody. David the first time you meet him, he'll tell you his whole life story if you let him. But I keep things a little closer. So, but here I was, we're on the phone with this man, and we hardly talked about the school and the transition at all. Boom, within 5 minutes, we're off talking about really deep personal things. I even told him that I was in the process of getting a divorce, and I had hardly told anyone at that point. Only my very closest friends, and not even all of them. And here I'm telling this total stranger. So go ahead, I'll let you tell your favorite parts of this.
Yeah, so my favorite parts is I'm on the phone with this person, and yes, and Christopher, you and I connected. You meet authenticity; it goes deeper and deeper, and that's what. And you and I, within 5 minutes, I felt I knew you, you knew me, trusted each other, and I had that experience with Juli, and it kept getting deeper, and I would go a little deeper, and she'd follow me there, and I'd go a little deeper, and she'd follow me there, and she'd go a little deeper, and what normally happens in those situations is suddenly you wake up and say, who the hell is, who is this person? And is she going to think I'm I'm trying to pick her, what's she going to, especially if it's opposites, there's some romantic possibility for whatever. And so I kept waiting for one of us to pull the plug and go back to superficiality and inauthenticity, but it never happened. And when I hung up, I thought, wow, this is a real human being. And I thought I was, and also because I'd been divorced for a number of years, and as we might talk about later, Juli had, unknowing to me, thrown the cloak of invisibility over me for 4 years to keep me fresh for her when she finally came into this thing. I'd had a date in 4 years, so I thought, I wonder if she's pretty. I wonder what she looks like. I'll go on Facebook and, hell, she's a knockout. I think, okay, that's great. And then when we met, there was no chemistry.
Wait, you're missing
what am I missing?
One of the best parts of the story.
Oh, this is why we operate as a team. Go ahead.
Yeah, he got too carried away for a minute there. He's got the energy of a child, Christopher. We gotta tame him.
It ain't gonna happen. It hasn't happened in 70 years. You can take another 70 years trying to do
I've
it.
got some reins on it. They're back here behind the chair. You can't see them. I tug on them every once in a while.
And there's a shock collar we take off just for public appearances as well. She has it set on stun, not kill. Go ahead.
So that day when we spoke the first time, as David said, and he would take it a step deeper or more personal or more intimate or more vulnerable, and I would follow him. When we hung up the phone, I was sitting at my desk during the call. When we hung up the phone, I, clear as can be, heard in my head, heard Juli Gold. And I thought to myself, because I have studied dreams a lot, dream work, and I thought, I wonder what kind of gold David's going to bring into my life. Had no clue whatsoever, none, that one day we would be, life partners, forever loves, married. Had no idea. So now you can charge ahead.
Yeah, and anytime, Christopher, feel free to, if we're not going a direction or you want to, something strikes your fancy, we when we met, there was no chemistry, and I was disappointed because I really thought this might be something, and it was reciprocal, and we settled into what I like to call, I don't like to use the word spiritual, but we have yet to find a better word for it.
Mm-hmm.
But we fell into a spiritual friendship, the way that, and I had many spiritual friends of the opposite sex. And so this was not new to me in terms of how do you navigate a beautiful woman who's just a friend. We shared something, and that's pretty much how we went through the next 2 or 3 months until. Should I? Okay, I've set it up. I've teased it.
I know.
You gotta keep it going.
Usually, he's making everybody be on the edge of their seats. I'm going to cut to the chase a little bit more. Until the door opened, and it happened over a 3-day period of time. We weren't even in the same place. He was in Denver. I was here in North Carolina. And the first day, these are hard to describe. This is something we experienced. It's not an idea we had. We didn't know that this was this sort of thing could happen in life. But the first day we felt like, well, I'll speak for me. I felt like this quickening energy, this and high, like an energy that kind of buzzed a little bit higher than normal life. And he and I were on the phone. We were on text. We were emailing all day long. And we just it was almost like we just couldn't communicate. We couldn't stay in close enough communication. And we had no idea what was happening, but we could feel that something was happening. So that by the end of the first day, I actually said out loud, what's happening here? And he didn't know. And then on the second day, this whole thing continued. And it felt like, a door had opened and we were walking through it. And by the second day, what we realized is that we were stepping into our love. And that what was on, the side of the threshold that we were on was we were just friends and we had no chemistry and we had no interest in each other. But we were crossing that threshold. And on the other side was our love, fully formed, complete, eternal, pure, and we were stepping into it. And so by the end of that second day, we already knew that, we can't say that we fell in love or that our love, it's not even that it grew. Of course, it's grown over time in a very personal way, but the love we were stepping into was impersonal in a way. And so by the end of the second day, we already knew that here we are, we've stepped into it and it's here and we were in it and we could feel it. And then then it was we joked with each other at the end of the second day, like, do you think there's going to be any chemistry? Because there never has been before. So the third day was the day when David was back in town at that point, and we learned that yes, that it had changed. The transformation had happened. It's not even a transformation. We just stepped into it.
One kiss, baby. That was it. One kiss, and I knew it. Here's the chemistry. So, and here's something.
That was it.
That was it. That was the end of story. Beginning of story. And there's something I want to point out again to your listenership, especially the young men that you are so beautifully serving, Christopher. I want to say what you're bringing to them is such a gift, and I hope they appreciate. I would encourage them to appreciate you're not just a podcaster that has some cool guests and reads nice quotes from sacred text. I mean,
well, I am that too.
and. So it's all about the end. But to that audience, this is happening. I'm in a board meeting, okay, and I'm supposed to be, I'm like we're there. We're supposed to be looking at spreadsheets, and they can't see my screen because I'm just emailing her, or I'm pretending, I got to do something on my phone, But all the while, my mind didn't stop thinking. It's like, what the hell's going on? But there's fear. Am I overstepping? Am I trespassing? We all know that. We've all been made, quote, made fools of ourselves, or felt we've been foolish, or whatever it is. And so this didn't stop. But after a while, it was just become, what happened is the ecstasy and the anticipation, I would say even just the truth of what was revealing was overriding my fears in my mind, which wanted to make sense of it so that I could be safe. And, I don't think this is news. The kind of love we're talking about is never going to be predictable. It's never going to be, it's safe in the sense that I feel a security with her that's freed me up to be a man that I never dreamed I'd have the guts to be. So there's a tremendous safety there. But in terms of safe, like, oh my God, you're going to know what's happening next, or you're going to be able to predict this, or you're not going to get hurt, or you're not going to get up ahead of your skis or behind your skis. Nope. You don't have that. And so knowing that just because if something like this something is revealing itself, just because your mind's still going and your fears are there, doesn't mean, oh, this can't be it, because you're still there. And there's one quick story that I want to throw that because it's one of the first times that I had as my stepdaughter likes to say, I had my head up my ass, and Juli had to go in after it. That's a bad metaphor. It's a bad visual, but take it. Well, there's a better way to say it. But on the way home, so I'm flying back from Denver, and I'm in. We're having right up to the time we get till the flight attendant threatens to throw me off the plane if I don't stop texting. We're in contact, but then I have like 4 hours by myself. And all my fears and all my doubts start going, because we had broken the connection. At least it was broken enough that I could crawl back into my hole. I could crawl back into the fears. I could crawl back to who I was when I was 25 years old or 30 years old or whatever. And so when I get off the plane and we're in touch, I'm primed for rejection. I'm primed for fear.
Oh, he's already created the rejection, Christopher. He wasn't even just primed. He had already created it.
Oh yeah, I built a beautiful room had rejection written on the front door, and Juli made an innocuous comment, she said, why is it that people who saw us always thought we were more than friends? And what she's asking is, they saw it before we did. What I'm saying it is, oh, am I the last idiot that doesn't realize we're just friends? And I crawled off into my little hole. I crawled back, and that was probably the first time that I actually rejected the love, because at that moment, my fear was greater than my love. And what happened over time and continues to happen is my love continues to outshine my fear. And as I think I said to you when we first talked, but I find myself loving my way past things that I tried for 45 years of spiritual practices and celibacy and retreats and all these other things, isolations of trying to overcome. I'm just loving my way past them, and it's a much better way to live.
And I can really speak about this, especially since your audience is primarily men. David was on a spiritual path, like the traditional spiritual path, with the teacher, the guru, doling out advice and tidbits of wisdom, and David just doing everything. He had two teachers, so doing everything that they said. as closely as he could possibly do it, because he was determined to get enlightened, right? And it didn't work. 40 years, and it didn't work. And it's through no fault of his own, it's no lack of trying. But in the first, even just few months of us being together, just all of these things that they just fell away. And it was effortless. He didn't try. That wasn't even in his head. I mean, we were in the throes of the beginning of this great love. Like we weren't thinking, oh, we have to change ourselves. It was just the love that we were steeped in was transforming us both effortlessly.
And to the extent that there was something that was mine to do, was not to hide from it. Was just to choose to continue to put my attention and my heart on Juli, and not on the old fears. So there's always a choice, and that's one of the things that was revealed to us early on. Is our love was choiceless. It was eternal. We couldn't break it. We couldn't. There's no way in the world. It's beyond us. And at the same time, our love, the word that was used, was precarious, because we could choose to screw it up. And as I'm thinking now, talking to you, Chris, I think the only thing that could have screwed it up is if I would have decided to pay more attention to my fears than to my love. If I would have insisted that this meet my insecurities, that this love meet the conditions that I had put before I would dare to love. And had I insisted on holding on to all those ideas that everyone who's listening to this has, and it's no crime, it's just being human. And it's perfect for everyone to have these fears or whatever. If I'd have insisted on that, that could have wrecked it. Whereas just being in the love, it's carried us along.
It could have wrecked the potential for us to have this relationship this time. It was also very clear to us, and is very clear to us, the love itself could never have been wrecked. There's nothing that he could have done or I could have done that we can ever do that can even mar it, can even put a fingerprint on it. It exists almost irrespective of us.
Wow, that is so beautiful. Thank you both so much. I feel like there's so many nuggets of wisdom in there, and it sounds like this is so synchronistic to me, because I just had some pretty deep realizations last weekend while I was at a retreat in Big Bend that that is what a relationship is it is a practice of devoting yourself to love, right? It is a practice of constantly laying down your ego for this other, in a devotion to reconnecting with source and reconnecting with love. And so I'm curious, this love does exist, yet this fear exists as well, right? So when we do fall out of that love, or when our ego does come up and bear its face, how do we navigate that in relationship?
Yeah, I love that question, because I'm the one that's always like bringing us down to earth and saying, we don't want to paint the picture that we never have a crossword, or we never have a difficult time, or we always agree. This is not an relationship. That's not what it is. It's that too. But we argue, we disagree, we sometimes wish we could change the other person. I like to say that David runs off in his corner. That's his way of dealing with conflict a lot, is he goes and he licks his wounds in the corner somewhere. I don't so much go off and go in my corner. I'm more the person that's like right there, like, I'm mad, but I'm gonna let you know. It's a real relationship in the real world. And you know what? I mean, I want to shout from the rooftops that all of that is okay. Don't make it wrong. We're always trying to be this perfect idea that we have of what a human being should be. And meanwhile, we're missing the point entirely. We just need to be human and just accept ourselves, accept every little bit of yourself. And the more we accept ourselves, you know what? I accept that I get irritable, frustrated, impatient, angry, that I raise my voice, that sometimes I just want you to just go, like go out to the curb or something, like go pitch a tent in the backyard. But rather than judge myself and feel terrible about myself and, I shouldn't be doing that, which when you devoted when you're one of us who decides that we're going to do the spiritual path, spirituality, the spiritual path is full of all sorts of, I just have to be spiritual. It's not spiritual to be irritable. It's not spiritual to be angry. Well, you know what? It's human. We're human beings. And we're all of it. Every single one of us is all of it. So it is ours to accept that. Accept all of it about ourselves. Accept every little bit about ourselves. And then the incredibleness, the majesty in all of this is that once we learn to love and accept ourselves, then the next natural thing that happens is we love and accept everybody else.
And they love and accept us.
And our loving and accepting of other people also then helps them to love and accept themselves. It's just this, it's the snowball effect.
Absolutely.
And this is what I want for all of the world. I'm raising 2 children. They're 17 and 20. So I have my boy is a 17-year-old. So, he's part of your audience. He's part of your demographic. I want them, to have that, to learn so much younger than we did how to love themselves and accept themselves. Because this is what's going to change the world. And it really is. This is what's going to change the world.
And if I can, I had one answer which I thought was really good, but then hers is better. But I'm going to give you the one because it's still pretty good. It's good enough. I think we'll make it past the editor's
All right, we'll see.
The cutting room floor. So when you were talking, Christopher, you and I are very similar, which is why we, resonated, even though we're, decades apart in life experience and age, but not in depth or art.
Mm-hmm.
That what I found is, okay, my ego's, this is this. And one of the things that was vertical wisdom that we got, call it spiritual wisdom, or higher wisdom, or whatever, was that that any speck that was in the channel between us, we needed to address the speck before we could do anything else. So, we're fighting, I do something, and then I think, well, the hell with her, I'm going to go, I'm just going to go work, or I'm going to go walk the dogs, or I'm going to go to the gym, or whatever I'm doing. It didn't work. It's like there was something fundamentally wrong. It's like you left your kid at home by themselves, and you can go do whatever you want to do, but the kid's still locked in the house. You got to get, it's that kind of sense of not rightness. And so what I found is that the specks, more often than not, we brought out something bigger in me. I had, in traditional spiritual terms, I had to put the ego aside. I put, hell, hell with her. I'm right, she's wrong. I'll come around in a minute, whatever the ego did. So there was a way that there was a self-regulatory or self-transcendent quality that helped a lot. And so that's one way that I was going to answer it. What Juli says is even better. Imagine how beautiful it is that Christopher, with his ego, loves. And Christopher's ego comes up and he still loves. And he's still a loving man with the ego, so that we don't tell everyone, oh my God, if you have an ego, you can't love. That's what I thought. That's why I wanted to be enlightened. I thought, I'll get rid of my ego, then I'll be lovable. Makes sense, right? It's bullshit. It's what Panache Desai calls a spiritual bypass. You're trying to bypass your humanity. When yes, love will bring out a part of yourself that's less egoic, or you'll start to put your attention more on that. Your center of gravity will start to shift. That's what happens. My center of gravity shifts. I'll speak for myself. My center of gravity shifted. But more importantly, it's like the things that I laugh. I laugh at my ego. We laugh at some of this stuff. We were down in Boca Raton celebrating my 70th, and I'm around all these people, a bunch of 70-year-old people that are the same genetic background I did. And I'd see myself like, oh, I want to push myself to the front of the line, just like, even though what the hell, there's nothing at the front of the line for me. But, rather than just say, oh my God, what is it with me? I'm still impatient. I can't be here in the moment. It's like, hell, this is hilarious. I'm just like all these other thousands of other New York Jews that I see running around trying to get to the front of the line. And I don't say that pejoratively. I say it like, this is hilarious. And so now my humanity is no longer my problem, and she laughs with me until it gets in the way of our relationship. And I'm in a hurry to get to the next thing and I'm not listening to her. Then it's a different story. The fact that we accept our humanity doesn't shield us from trying to minimize the impact that our egos have on other people. But that is a function of the love that comes. My love for her shines everywhere. It's literally just about everybody comes in my path. And the way that I want, the goodness that I want and the best that I want for Juli, it starts to go elsewhere. And so in that sense, I'm probably less egoically manifesting than I was before. But my ego's, I'm not free of my ego. I'm not egoless by any means. And it's a beautiful way to live. We can laugh, we can play. I can play. I couldn't, as long as I had the ego, I thought I had to struggle. I wasn't free to play. And our love is play. It's many things, but more than anything, it's playful.
And, David says, he still has his ego. Well, yeah, he does. So do I. And we're not trying to rid ourselves of them necessarily, but also there's like it's like a trail groomer. The ego is getting more and more just the lumps and bumps and the unevenness smoothed out. Like life is becoming, there's more ease, there's more peace, and that goes along with so much of what your quote at the beginning spoke of. It goes along with loving and accepting ourselves, which we've been talking about, just learning how to do that. And there are actually techniques that have been really effective for us, because David spent 40 years, I spent 20 trying to figure, everybody says you have to learn to love yourself, but nobody tells you how. And we didn't figure it out very well on our own. But also, a big thing for us was learning to trust life. And this is something that quote spoke of. When you really start to understand that you can let go of control, you can let go of ambition, you can let go of doing, you can let go of I have to make something happen, because life is imminently trustworthy. Life is going to lead each and every one of us to exactly where we need to be at any given time, and we can trust that, and we can be secure in that, and we don't have to do anything. What is ours to do is to be. Each and every one of us. It's not about doing. Life is not about doing. It's about being, and bringing the fullness of ourselves to each and every moment into life. And that makes all the difference.
And if on the subject of trust, because I had a specific path that isn't everyone's path, but it happened to be my path because I'm just a man of love. I mean, that just happens to be that's my differentiator. In business, they'd call it my secret sauce. It's what makes me more, as much as anything. And I was told when Juli came in, there was still human, and there were still things that didn't add up, and there were still times when I maybe I didn't trust our love, or didn't trust her fully, or didn't trust what she was saying. And the vertical wisdom that I got was trust Juli. Just it's almost like run the experiment. First trust Juli, then you'll learn to trust yourself, and then you'll learn to trust life. And that is precisely how it seems to have unrolled if you're looking at it in terms of time. For me, I needed to have another human being to love and to trust, to prove her. I needed the embodiment of that in a human form, because that's my, not better, no worse, just how I'm wired. And so I started to trust her, and
that's what life brought him, so he can trust that.
Right, that's the form that it came in.
Mm-hmm.
And I would spend 30 days in a cabin locked up by myself, no electricity, not another human soul, and I would learn. Yes, there was a certain trustworthiness in that spiritual sense. And that I'm not denying the value of that, or the truth of that, or the transcendent quality of that. But to be able to do that in human form, that's why I assume I came here. or whatever, for lack of a better way of saying it. And so I learned to trust Juli, and then I had to suspend my disbelief, had to suspend the parts of myself that did not trust long enough. And then I realized, wow, I kind of got the tuning fork of what trust felt like. And I started to see ways, and I don't know exactly how it translated. I'm making it up if I did, but I know the next step is I became trusting myself more, partly because I realized that I couldn't be the man I thought I was and have this woman love me the way that she did. You know, if I was who I thought I was, I'd been on the curb with my begging bowl and, you know, and my puppy dog, and I'd be down the road. But then literally what's happened more and more is we do trust life, and it is challenging us. I wouldn't say testing, because that puts a certain, I think it feels like a test. And I think in retrospect, they could see, like, it's not like life's trying to say, okay, you think you got the ass kicked out of it, try this one on for size. It's not like that.
No. It's not punitive.
No, it's not punitive. And
it doesn't. I don't know. I don't experience it like a test.
Yeah, I'm just saying, but I see that one could look at it the way that that it gets challenged deeper and deeper and more embodied and proving itself more and more. And things are happening now at the pace of, just like it's happening with you in terms of your epiphanies, it's picking up speed. The pace of the epiphanies and the depth, it's happening more and more. They're starting to run together rather than being just these peak things that happen in a flat line, right?
Well, and I have an example of this, Christopher. We have so many, but one of my favorite ones is when, you know, at some point, and I don't know where this was in the course of my first marriage, but at some point, as it was clearly ending, or maybe we had even decided that it was done, I turned my head to the skies and the stars and said, God, if you want to bring me sometime in the future another partner, they're going to have to come to me, like come into my house, because I'm a homebody, I am an introvert, I am a mother with young kids. Like I'm not going out in the world to try to find somebody. And I'm not saying that I created this, but what I am saying is that, and that's exactly, of course, how David came into my house through my computer. But what I am saying is that this is how trustworthy life is. Each of our own lives will bring us exactly what we need and the way we need it, catered to who we are. We don't have to try to be somebody different. Do you know how many decades I wasted in my life trying to be someone different? Because we live in a culture where if you're an introvert, if you are quiet, you can't maybe tell today, but I'm a quieter person. I'm kind of shy. I'm kind of quiet. I could go on and on. I had the feeling that something was wrong with me and that I fundamentally needed to change who I was. But my life knew that I didn't have to change a thing about me, that I was created perfectly for the life that I have to live. And so life brought me what I needed. And in this case, it just happens to be David, but what a beautiful example. I didn't have to, my life gave me my forever love the only way that I could have found him.
It is absolutely beautiful. Yeah, Dave, go for it.
Yeah, thanks. I wish, I don't know, I guess this is probably just audio, but I wish the audience could see how receptive and how you're pulling us out and just by your presence. So it's another great quality that you have, and I want to thank you for creating that kind of field for us too.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for acknowledging that. And I just want to sort of wrap this up with one final question, which is something that we kind of briefly talked about. And this is something that my girlfriend and I discussed last weekend as well, which is, we do have this sort of spiritual term, and it's thrown around a lot in the conscious community of just love yourself, right? But what does that really mean? What does it mean to love yourself, and how do you do it? And yeah. Yep.
Well, David mentioned earlier something that our good friend Panache Desai says, and he's really the one who has taught us this. what's the first thing is, I mean, some people could just love themselves, but if you can't love yourself, if you're not at the place yet where you can love, so let's just use anger. Anger is a great one. There's very few people that are like, oh yeah, I love my anger. Anger is great. We're taught that anger's bad and we have to get rid of it. And if you feel angry, you can't, speak to people out of anger. So oftentimes when you're kind of starting this, you can't love your anger, for example. It just seems like, no, I can't love my anger. Well, then see if you can accept your anger. Can you accept it? You might not even be able to accept it. I know that when I was first doing this, I couldn't love my anger, and no way could I love it. Could I accept it? No. But what I could do was welcome it. So when I would feel it, when I'd be experiencing it, rather than go like, oh, clench against it or block it off, cut it off, pretend it did, whatever. There's lots of workarounds that we human beings do with emotion. I'd welcome it. Welcome. Breathe into it. Where I was feeling it in my body, breathe into that spot. Welcome. I could welcome it. And do that with all emotions, everything, and thoughts, even body feeling, like, oh, I've got a headache. Well, most of us, when we have something that doesn't feel good in our bodies, we sort of clench against it, just like we do with emotions. Well, the secret is in welcoming it. Welcome. I mean, we can even welcome seemingly terrible things like cancer or, heart disease. No, welcome. And then the magic is after a while, you can accept it. Like you find like, oh, I can accept my anger now. I can do more than welcome it. I can accept it. And I can accept my frustration and my irritation. I can accept that sometimes I don't have to feel shame when I, get frustrated with my husband. I can accept these things. I can accept the headache. I can accept the joint pain, whatever it is. And then, lo and behold, you keep doing this. Then, lo and behold, one day you'll actually love these things. And the remarkable thing is, and I didn't believe that this would happen until it happened to me. The remarkable thing is that when you get to the place where because all of these emotions that we've stuffed down for entire lifetimes, they just want to get out, And as we welcome them, as we accept them, as we breathe into them, as when we don't fight against them, they come up and out and up and out. And we don't, it just happens. And then one day, not only will we find that we love our anger, irritation, frustration, impatience, sadness, heartbreak, grief, and all of our thoughts and our ideas, our crazy ideas that we often have. Then one day, not only do we find that we love them, but we're just humored by them. We could just laugh, like, they're so nothing. They're really just so, they're almost inconsequential. They're just, they become humorous. And then they're humorous not only when you yourself experience them, but when you see someone else. I had I had a few people in my life who said that they never really seen anger, that all that they've seen when people are expressing what they think to be anger was something else. But suddenly that point comes where you can see right through it. Anger's just, it's kind of funny. And I don't mean like ha ha, but it's something, it's just inconsequential. When you get to that place where you just love it and you love all your emotions, then you can laugh about them. You can be at ease with them. They can live right alongside of you and you don't have to hide from them anymore.
And I'm playing off that. I was thinking, I'm glad she talked because I had a chance to think about this. I mean, it's what I do for a living, basically. I mean, it's what I do, is I free people from that. And I was trying to think, well, how can I put this in a few words? And I think Juli hit it at the end. The things that we use to disqualify ourselves that seem so big to us are nothing. But there's a charge. They have a deep charge. I say the punishment doesn't fit the crime. It'll be the stupidest little thing that I do that makes me think, oh my God. And I'm piling on every stupid thing I've ever done or whatever it is. So I think one way to turn the jewel is to look and say, how do we take the charge out of the self? It's a self-disqualification. We are disqualifying ourselves because of the charge that's in that emotional experience when we do something that we think is worthy of disqualification. I don't know if that makes sense. So there's so many different ways to take the charge out. For me, my own, and I can't recommend this to anybody else, but I just kept loving more and more and more, which wasn't a discipline for me. It wasn't a practice. It was just, I might remind myself to do it, but it wasn't like I forced myself. And finally I realized, my God, I love everyone and everything except myself. I thought, what? How absurd is that? What is it that me puts me out of the pale than a damn, Prime delivery guy or, anybody, the woman at Walmart or, the cable lady I'm calling to cancel my service. I can love them, but I can't love me. But that's one of the things that takes the charge out. And then something else that I just would recommend, especially I'm thinking again about the audience, one of your primary demographics is I would, quick story. We were working with a shaman. It was about something we were resolving in terms of blending our families. And the shaman said to me, she said, Dave, your guardian angels, she described my guardian angel and said, she's bored to death. Basically, she said, my joke is she's doing crossword puzzles, waiting for you to ask her for something. Goes, go ahead, ask. Just ask for one thing, and ask for one thing that's so specific that when it comes, you won't be able to deny it. And son of a gun, if it didn't happen. Now, I'm not telling, and it's fun. I use it with some of my clients sometimes, and it almost always works. But it doesn't have to be that thing. But you trust a little. You just trust up to your capacity to trust, and maybe 1 inch further. Just push yourself an inch further than what you trust, and allow yourself to believe. Suspend your cynicism and how smart I am, and I know better because I've been, blah blah blah. So the people are fools and whatever, naive, and suspend it long enough for it to prove itself. And then the love grows more, and the love lets you trust, and the trust in the love, and it's an upward spiral. And that's what I would say. I said, whatever you are, you want to wait for Juli to fall out of the universe for you? Great. In the meantime, here's what you do. Trust. Experiment with trust.
And that means trusting even if you don't get what you're asking your
Right.
guardian angel for.
Right.
Like, I want to make sure that that's really clear because we disqualify ourselves that way too. We're not talking about, manifestation here. We're talking about letting go of control, trusting life to bring you what you need. And if it's not what you think you need, trusting that life is bringing you exactly what you actually need. And moving you toward more. One of my favorite quotes is, all things work for good. When you can trust that all things, not just all good things, not just everything that feels good, not just things we want, but all things work for good. So when you're in a painful time, it's propelling you toward something good, something better. It's opening up something in you. You can trust it. And then just to live into it, the more we can live into our pain, live into our suffering, live into our grief and our heartache, open ourselves up more and more to vulnerability and to letting life in, letting life in. Then there's no limits.
And maybe my last word, if not the last word, I was a lawyer, I'd always like to get the last word in, of course, is that everything is, again, something Panache said, is that we both made our own in our own way, is everything you want resides in the unknown. So this surrender isn't like, oh, it's some spiritual discipline or something I got to do. It's if you're trying to control it, you can't control yourself to the unimaginable. So, and to me, the epitome of that is on my side here. This was the unimaginable. I couldn't control. I tried controlling to make myself something, and it was all in the way, if anything. But recognizing that the surrender, the trust and surrender, I don't know what, I'm sure they're the same thing when you turn it, that it's just about letting you let go of the control so that life can bring you that which you most want. And allowing life to prove that to you step by step by you getting the hell out of your own way.
Well, that is absolutely beautiful. Thank you both so much for just the wisdom that you've shared, and just watching you two interact has been just an absolute pleasure. And there's so many nuggets of wisdom and what both of you have had to say today. And just finally here, how can we find you? And you know,
Thanks for that. The best way to get in touch is my website. My name's Dave Gold, DAVEGOLD. That's my website. And if you just email me at dave@davegold.com, or and that'll get through to Juli as well.
He does share with me.
Yeah, she's a little more private than I am. I get to take any arrows if I get that. But I would just say whatever it is. And I would. Okay, this I swear this is really the last word. That was the penultimate last word. In this moment, something's opened up for everybody that's listening to this. And it doesn't mean they have to email. Just take this moment to do a little bit more of what Juli did the first time we talked. Just be a little bit more real in the next interaction that comes your way. Use what the three of us have created together here as a door opener to just experiment a little bit, because we've created a field, and I want people to utilize that field and respond in whatever way sees appropriate. But anyway, the direct answer is dave@davegold.com. We'll find them both. We'll find both of us.
Awesome. Well, thank you both so much. What an absolute pleasure and honor it has been to share some time and some space with you. And thank you all for tuning in and listening today on the Becoming a Gentleman podcast. And I will catch you all in the next one. All right. Peace. Thank you, guys.